during those times, right? So I talked about these things very briefly. This idea of emotions plus thoughts equal behavior, right? So I want to dig down a little deeper into that because I think these principles will help us to develop this more in a more sophisticated way, but also be more helpful to our clients, right? So emotions plus thoughts equals behavior. Now, what is a thought? So, because I want to break these down for a second. What is a thought? Something that you're thinking that you believe in. Okay. What is a thought? Okay. Okay, so it starts as an idea, right? Are there ideas that you have that win over other ideas? Yes. So you have thousands of ideas all the time. And why do some ideas survive over other ideas? What's that? So you choose them. So it's logical or illogical. You test it out. And what determines what's logical or illogical? Uh-huh. If it's going to what? Function to what purpose? Attain your goal, right? So ideas that help you attain your goal live. They stay, right? Ideas that don't go. They die. So first of all, when we talk about this idea of thoughts, there is there's a thing called a meme, which is the smallest unit of thought. The smallest unit of thought or an idea. So let me see if I can draw one of these. Because you've seen memes on social media and whatnot, and their pictures, and usually have some words associated with them, and blah, blah, blah. Let me see if I can pick a good one. I'm going to draw a meme right now. So, does anybody know? Mike Tyson, right? Is that a picture of Mike Tyson? No, it is not a picture of Mike Tyson. But how do you know that that is Mike Tyson? So there are lots of yeah, there are lots of indications based on the meme. So this becomes a meme, or in we talked last time about this idea of a logo or logos, right? So those are forms of a logo is a form of meme. So when I see this, what is that? The Star of David. This has a number of different meanings. So in the religious context, it symbolizes Judaism. On the street, it symbolizes what? Gang affiliation. So these memes are the basic unit of ideas. So there's this thought. There is a community of thought around taking Darwinian ideas of the survival of the fittest kinds of ideologies or thought process and applying those to thoughts. And so if a if a thought was biological in a sense, then the meme would be the equivalent, the biological equivalent of the cell, so the smallest unit. So I'll just put. So you have these small cells. Now, if we're using this metaphor of biology, just what thoughts, how many ideas? So first of all, why do some ideas live and some ideas die? Right? So they're helping you to reach your goal. So the ideas that make sense to us, that help us to reach our goal, we entertain that idea and we, right? So if the mean is the cell or the smallest unit of thought, then what happens when we, so if I want to have a really solid idea, what must I have lots of? I had to have lots of cells, right? So I have to have lots of thoughts. So for meme equals a thought, did I tell you the St. Francis McDonald story? So I'm in St. Francis. Again, me, smallest unit form of thought, right? Me. I'm in St. Francis. You guys know where St. Francis is? Um, it's north of Anoka County, kind of almost rural, pretty rural actually. Um, and diversity is not a big. I mean, there's not a whole lot of diversity out there in the classic sense. Okay? And so I'm sitting there, just having my, little lunch snack kind of thing before I have to do the session. And then my grandfather and two little biracial boys come in, and they had their little t-ball uniforms on, and they had just come back from doing their thing. And so I'm sitting there, and the boys are staring at me, and so I just smile. I just smile at the kids, and they go up to the counter, they grab their stuff, and they're still eyeballing me, right? And so they go sit down with their food, and I'm sitting this whole time, kind of watching this thing play out. And the youngest boy says, "Granddad, he's brown," and he's a brown man, is what they said. He said he's a brown man, and grandfather kind of didn't say anything, kind of acknowledged the kid said something, and then the older boy looked at the grandfather and said, "Grandfather, or granddad, he's a bad man, huh?" And the grandfather tucked his eyes, and I looked at the grandfather, and he didn't say anything. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm a diversity person. They were talking about me. It's a public space. I can speak up for myself and say, "No, I'm not a bad man." Blah blah blah. What would I have done had I confronted the kids? I would have scared the dickens out of them. Right? So I didn't say anything. So I just let this thing roll out, and I just shook my head because it's so. What's going to be sad is that one day, because the grandfather doesn't know how to deal with this, didn't deal with this. One day, those boys are going to figure out or find out that they're brown also. So these memes become extremely important because if we don't take these little ideas and really shape them and mold them, particularly in young people, to help them reach their goals, then they start building a platform by which they see the world that is a faulty platform. And then they get disillusioned when they find out the truth about how the world works. Right? So this idea of a meme, the smallest unit of thought. So you need a group of memes to create a thought. Right? So you need tons of memes. So memes equal thought. So all these little cells get together and they create a thought. Now, what comes next in this progression? Because I have random thoughts. Now, what happens when my thoughts get together? Does it make a behavior? So all my thoughts together make a behavior. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So thought, what's a thought, what's a thought equals what? In the Christian community, we have we have 10 thoughts that form the nature of that system. What are those 10 thoughts? The 10 commandments. Right? In Jewish communities, it's the Torah, right? So the 10 commandments kind of fall in the Torah. Uh, Islam has the five pillars of Islam. Um, the Buddhists have or even beyond that, if we go to Confucius, people believe, or the Taoists, all of these systems have a set of beliefs. So a thought, so thoughts form beliefs. So a system of thought so means thoughts, thoughts create a belief, and belief added to an emotional state dictates action. So here we go. So let's talk about why do people have these certain thoughts and why do these memes get generated in the first place? Context. Context. Right? So the development of memes, the development of thoughts, the development of a belief is all based on the context. Why do Muslims have the five pillars? Because people are acting crazy without having some structure, right? And maybe crazy is not the right way, but they certainly weren't operating in a way that their cultures were going to live for very long, given the nature of how they were behaving. Why the Ten Commandments? The Ten Commandments was because people were doing stuff that was not going to let them live as a culture for very long, right? So all of these things all are related to context. Context. Emotions. If we follow the same kind of thing, why do people have the feelings that they do? Because they're responding to their context. So when I encounter people that don't necessarily believe what I believe or understand the world the way I understand it, what I understand is that I have to understand their context before we can go anywhere. And so when we talk about this idea of culture, again, what did we say culture was? Well, why does culture exist? What function does it serve? Margins of understanding. Okay. Culture is simply the adaptation to the set of behaviors, the set of thoughts, the set of beliefs that they adapt to the context. We talked about Brazil nuts, right? Contextual. So in the case of people who, so I find it interesting that I was on a workshop the other day and I talked about this. So there's a place called Chino Latino. Has anybody been to that restaurant, Chino Latino? So it's kind of like, I guess it's kind of a hipster kind of place, right? So I was, it was one of my first times there, and or I had been there several times, but never used the restroom. I'd never gone to the restroom. And this particular time, I had to go to the restroom. It's a really weird setup because the restrooms are way behind all the restaurant tables, right? So it's not the restrooms aren't convenient at all, and most of the activity happens on the main floor, but the restrooms are on the second floor in the kind of in a basement kind of thing. It's just kind of weird stuff. At any rate, so I'll go past the sinks, go into. They have a door that has the urinals and whatnot. So I go to the urinal area and I take care of my business. I come back out to wash my hands, and I'm washing my hands, and I look up and I see a woman's face, and now I'm really confused because I'm like, I'm in the bathroom. I should not be seeing a woman's face in the bathroom, right? Yeah, yeah. So now I'm rethinking. Did I use the right bathroom? Like everything is like confusing to me. I'm like, what just happened? Well, that they have the way they have it set up is that the urinal area is sectioned off from the sink area, and the sink area is just this open area that kind of anybody can use, and depending on And so I kind of looked up and she laughed. She laughed because I was like, so it was just really weird, right? So you had that experience. Yeah, it was just very weird. Then I start thinking about people who have concerns about. I will tell you this about the future. This will happen. At some point in the future, men and women will use the same bathroom at the same time. So that will happen in the future. It will happen. What do you think about that? We don't have male female bathrooms in our houses. It will bother you if you had a young kid. Yeah. Other folks, what do you think? Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know. Personally, it freaks me out. I would just tell you right now, like that whole idea of that freaks me out. So being a dad and having a little girl, I hadn't realized like how difficult that can be to try to get her needs met when we're in the bathroom, right? And so it's like, whoa, eye opening. But no, it totally freaks me out. And kids, like, so public schools and, kids using the same bathrooms and different genders using the same bathrooms. It's a concern that I have, right? And teenagers and yeah, all that stuff, right? So all that stuff is a concern to me. But I want you to think about those things that come up as concerns and the thing that wigs me out. It's the same kind of thing that wigged out people who even thought about black people and white people using the same bathrooms, using the same water fountains, in the same swimming pools, in the same blah, 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 right? And so all of this stuff, right? So all this weirdness stuff is funneled through to my belief systems. My belief systems get caught up in, mixed with my context and my culture is in how I adapt to that changing context. And so for me, I had to keep that in mind. That there was a time when the way I feel about those bathrooms, people felt exactly that same way about black and white people using. And so far, it's turned out we've been okay with black people, white people being in the same for the most part. Although, Justice Supreme Court Justice Scalia thinks that black people should just go to stronger schools because. At any rate, so this is important, right? So what do we know about emotions? Because emotions are very interesting things. Supreme Court Justice. Um, yes. What do we know about emotions? They're intense. Oh my God, they are so intense, right? Oh, I love her. Oh, I can't. You know, I don't know if you guys did this, but back in the day, we had we didn't have cordless phones. We had the phone with a long cord, right? And so I'd sit in the hallway and I'd call, a girl that I liked, and we would just sit there and we would just breathe together. Not that big, right? Is it? Oh, just, yeah. And no reason. Yeah. Like, what is going on? Yeah. And so nothing really, I mean, nothing crazy. Just, yeah, till you fall asleep together on the phone. Yeah, so emotions are just like crazy, I mean, intense. And they can override your thoughts. Intense. They can override your thoughts. And they're what? Temporary. They are temporary. Okay. Bottle of wine. Woo! Yes! I'm feeling it. Woo! Yes! After 3 bottles of wine. Oh, dude. Oh, oh. Right? Yeah, I think it's interesting that they call those things spirits. Right? I think it's funny. So emotions are intense and they're also fleeting. They change. And it's so funny what helps them to change. The context. The context changes those emotions. No, you can help him change himself by helping him by changing. No, but changing the context, right? Yeah, we don't put up with this kind of stuff. That starts changing the context. This is who we are. That starts changing the context, right? And emotions adjust to the context. I don't, we're watching. I don't read on the phone. Why? Because we're in a different context. I got stuff to do. I got to get up in the morning. Don't bother me too much because I got stuff to do. So emotions change with context, and we know that emotions are intense and they're fleeting. And that's one of the things we have to remind our clients. That this is no, you really that is great that you feel that. You feel that now. Do you think you'll feel that way forever or for a long time? Help them really process through those emotions because those emotions can be really overwhelming. They can override our common sense, right? It's funny. Our pastor told a story about his son stealing his car, and he was stealing it. He was borrowing it without permission, right? And then the boy got stuck because he figured out how to lie to get the car, but he didn't figure out how to get the car back without exposing that he lied in the first place. So he was stuck, right? And he got to a point where his emotions got so intense, his feelings of guilt and shame, and what's going to happen to him when his dad, so all this stuff that he got stuck, and he got scared, and he was not going to go home. So finally, he came to a senses and he called his dad, and his dad said, "Son, come home, go to the car, drive safe, we'll talk." What did dad have to do? Calm down, override these intense emotions, these feelings. You know, and the pastor tells the story. He said, "Because I wanted my car back safe." Right? But caught up in this. This becomes this spiraling, feeding thing that, and then all of our worst nightmares start playing in our heads, right? 9/11 is going to happen again, and it's going to be while I'm in the IDS tower. I guarantee you that the events of 9/11 will never, ever happen again. Ever. Pearl Harbor has never happened again. It is whatever you want to. Yeah. What? Yeah. What, all I have to say is that um, I cannot live my life in fear. But I, but the core question I would ask myself is, why do I need the Mall of America to have an attack? Why do I need to have that conversation in my head? What does that say about where I am and who do I think is going to attack? Because quite honestly, domestic terrorist attacks happen from white people. You know, so domestic, the scariest domestic terrorists have been white people. Organizations like the Klan to, what's that? The Unabomber. So one should ask oneself, why am I concerned about these other things when the people who look like me have been terrorizing much longer? Why am I concerned? But and that's the part we gotta, because these little thoughts, these little things, it's giving us these little memes all the time, giving us all this stuff, right? So you think of welfare, welfare, and according to the media, look at welfare. Who's on welfare? Lazy black single mothers. Statistically, I mean, if we just look at the statistics, the numbers bear a different kind of truth out. And that doesn't talk about farm subsidies. It also doesn't talk about corporate subsidies as welfare, because in fact, that's exactly what some of those things are. Tax breaks or the loan forgiveness programs, the too big to fail kinds of, those are welfare programs. And so, we have to battle some of these memes in our thoughts, because some of those memes, even though we don't think that they're appropriate, start to become the basis of these thoughts. And once I dwell on these individual thoughts, they become a part of my belief. And nobody checks it for me. Go ahead. That's fine. Well, I will tell you that my grandmother, on my mother's side, was as dark as that curse, and we had family members who were as white as this paper, right? And my grandmother grandmother would always tell all of us as grandchildren. And this is something that the context, right? Context is everything. That context drove. She would tell us all that we were equally black. I don't care what you look, you're black. So part of her context was that she grew up in the South. And, so this idea of a one drop rule, that if you have one drop of black blood, or you look black, if you look black, that you are black. But the other part was that she wanted to preserve this idea of family that's being unified. Now, because on the other side of this, that everybody is black, was that being light skinned brought something different back then than what it brings today. So now we talk about being, and people say, well, why haven't we talked about being multicultural before now? Well, to be quite honest, particularly in the black community, to be multicultural or to be light skinned meant something. And it did not mean something pleasant. So how would dark Africans attain white skin? What would happen for them for their children to attain this idea of light skin? So just say it. So I can get over that hump. So why would folks in my grandmother's generation and the generations before her, how did they get light skin? Because the slave owners did what? They raped they raped folks. So part of our family, and I'll let you speak in just a second. So part of our family are Lewises. Lewis is an Irish name. I have aunts, tons of freckles. You don't get freckles from Africa. I mean, let me back up and say, it is a dormant gene in the Africans, right? It is a dominant gene in the Irish. And so black people with freckles in my family is a remembrance that somebody messed with the gene pool, right? And it usually was not willing. So this idea that black is black came because we didn't want to have to talk about the rape of our ancestors to get to this point. Now, multicultural, so biracial and multiracial people now don't have that same stigma that my grandmother had to deal with and people in her generation had to deal with. But they certainly have this mixed identity that they have to back. Go ahead. Go ahead. You have to add more. So, yeah. So you said a bunch of stuff that I would imagine most of the people in the room may not necessarily have. So can you break that context down? Because you refer to yourself as being light skinned and then a house nigga. So can you explain that? that? I don't. Yeah, those are some pretty deep. Uh, so with what she just shared, take that in, listen to it with your heart. Don't try to, or if you do process it, don't try to make meaning of it without having conversations. Listen to it with your heart, because those are some pretty family kind of stuff. But she just brought out like all our family stuff out, you know, right? And it needs to be addressed in the open because those are some of the things that, as particularly again, we're all operating out of this context, right? And so we can't not talk about this idea of profundity of what the transatlantic slave trade did to this country and everyone else who came after us, right? So it's very interesting. So colonization in and of itself, so there are all these dreams in India because India also has a caste system. You know what I mean by caste system? What is a caste system? You heard that before? You were born into a caste and you die in that caste. So if your parents were poor, you were born poor, which is why that movie, yeah, Slumdog Millionaire, was profound because he was able to rise above blah, blah, blah. But the truth of the matter is, I thought that was very much like the kind of the Great Gatsby of humanity. Right? So you rise above, but you're still looked at that way. So this idea of caste systems, is important because people are trying to lighten their skin. Um, so that they can be more accepted, be more like to even like themselves more. People use Michael Jackson of that, and I don't know that I can't necessarily argue with that because his need to change his facial features and so on and so on. Sammy Sosa, great Dominican baseball player, is now very fair. He was born probably about my skin complexion, but now is um, blonde hair, blue eye, and kind of reconcile lots of stuff I would imagine. In Ghana, there's a push to help young women not to bleach their skin because a number of them are bleaching their skin and getting blue eyes and blonde hair and that kind of thing, as if that is beautiful. But if we're honest, they're sort of responding to a concept that said that is the image of beauty. And anything outside of that is an aberration, it's unnatural, it's not beautiful, it's less than. And so these things become really important, particularly if we want to help people, because we have to help them understand not only our current context, but the context of the past that has shaped who they are today. Right? So I didn't mean to spend like 1 hour on this, so it was crazy. Um, yeah, but so our behavior, so these become we call cultural, right? So we end up with these behaviors and we say, well, that's cultural. Well, sort of. I mean, it's a combination of thoughts and emotions, and so we have to pay attention to it. And so those, yeah, Well, that's the thing. Emotions that yeah, and I would say context is about is about time, is about place, and it's about space. Right. So when I talk about context, that is the environment. It's the physical environment. Right. So in different contexts, I got to show up differently. And the better I am at flowing between those contexts, the more successful I'm saying. I wrote on Facebook that Jada, Spike Lee, and some other folks are boycotting the Academy Awards. Well, I think that's almost hypocritical because the Academy Awards is not the NAACP. They're not a social justice organization. They never claimed to be, never desired to be. The first African American to receive an award was for what movie? Gone with the Wind. And that was Hattie, I forgot her last name, right? But what part did she win the Academy Award for? She played a slave, right? She played a slave. Um, it's called blackface. I mean, so the Academy, the Academy is said exactly what they believe in, right? So even when Morgan Freeman and Denzel Washington were nominated for film, what was the film? And supporting actor, Glory, about the Civil War, about these slaves fighting for their freedom, right? And then when Denzel did get his own award, what did he get it for playing? A cop, a thug, gangster, right? Halle Berry, what did she get hers for? For playing a desperate single mother with a dad in prison, da 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 da. Right? So all these stereotypical kinds of things. And I can understand the outrage. At the same time, Jada did pick. She did play a gangster woman up in what was that? Um, she was played a stereotypical role with Vivica Fox and Queen Latifah and what was the name of it? Yeah, they were all gangs. They were robbing banks and all that kind of stuff, right? So, so I don't know if you can have your cake and eat it too, kind of thing. But the academy has been clear about what they do. And I don't get my dignity. I don't get my dignity is not sanctioned by some organization. So, um, yeah. So that's all this stuff. So we want to help with. So yes, the environment is tucked in this idea of the context. Right? So. Those things become important. And when my ideas help me reach my goal and my emotions help me reach my goal, then I have successful goals, I have successful behavior, successful emotions. So let's do this. Let's take a 7 minute break, and then we'll start in on these films because I'm going to try to get through them all